Handbag.
Handbag.
Dennis looked like he threw a punch, but it was just handbags.
Handball.
Handball.
The referee gave a free kick for handball.
Handbill.
Handbill.
Students distributed handbills, calling for better funding for schools.
Handbook.
Handbook.
The fiction writer's handbook.
Handbrake.
Handbrake.
Handcar.
Handcar.
Handcart.
Handcart.
Handclap.
Handclap.
Handcrafted.
Handcrafted.
A handcrafted rocking chair.
Handcuff.
Handcuff.
Handcuffs.
Handcuffs.
They put handcuffs on the two men and led them away.
He was brought into the court in handcuffs.
A pair of handcuffs.
Hand-eye coordination.
Hand-eye coordination.
Handful.
Handful.
The boy picked up a handful of stones and started throwing them at us.
There were only a handful of people there.
She's a lovely child, but she can be a bit of a handful sometimes.
Hand grenade.
Hand grenade.
Handgun.
Handgun.
Handheld.
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 A handheld camera.
Handheld video games.
Handhold.
Handhold.
Handicap.
Handicap.
Not speaking the language is a real handicap.
He's improved a lot, and his handicap has come down from 18 to 12.
The charity is handicapped by lack of funds.
Handicapped.
Handicapped.
A special school for mentally handicapped children.
Handicraft.
Handicraft.
A shop selling handicrafts.
Handily.
Handily.
She kept the key handily by the back door.
Handiwork.
Handiwork.
She stood back and admired her handiwork.
The explosion looks like the handiwork of terrorists. Handjob.
Handjob.
Handkerchief.
Handkerchief.
Handle.
Handle.
I handled most of the paperwork.
The case is being handled by a top lawyer. The finance department handles all the accounts.
Computers can handle huge amounts of data. The headmaster handled the situation very well.
I knew I had handled the matter badly.
Leave it to me, I can handle it.
Most customers were satisfied with the way their complaints were handled.
Opposition leaders will be watching carefully to see how the Prime Minister handles the crisis.
Some customers are quite difficult to handle.
She can't handle it when people criticize her.
He doesn't handle stress very well.
He had never handled a weapon before.
We teach the children to handle the animals gently.
He was roughly handled by the mob.
I didn't know if I'd be able to handle such a large vehicle.
The car handles well, even on wet roads.
The post office handles nearly 2 billion letters and parcels over the Christmas period.
Bennett was charged with handling stolen goods.
Then he turned the handle and went in.
A knife with a carved wooden handle.
The handle of his cup. A broom handle.
It's difficult to get a handle on how widespread this problem is. It's difficult to get a handle on how widespread this problem is.
Handlebar moustache.
Handlebar mustache.
Handler.
Handler.
A police dog handler.
All food handlers should be properly trained.
Baggage handlers at the airport. She is kept well away from the press by her handlers. Handling.
Handling.
The President has been much criticized for his handling of the crisis.
Such a situation needs very careful handling.
The equipment should be able to withstand a certain amount of rough handling. Cargo handling.
A special license is required for the manufacture or handling of any dangerous chemical.
It's a lovely little car. The ride is comfortable and the handling excellent.
Handling charge.
Handling charge.
Handloom.
Handloom.
Hand luggage.
Hand luggage.
Handmade.
Handmade.
A pair of expensive handmade shoes.
Handmaiden.
Handmaiden.
Science must not become the handmaiden of the state.
Hand-me-down.
Hand-me-down.
She refused to wear hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-down clothes.
Handout.
Handout.
People who have to live on handouts from the state.
A cash handout.
Please read the handout.
Handover.
Handover.
The President will remain in office until the official handover in April.
A smooth handover of power.
The handover of the business. The handover to civilian government has been delayed.
They demanded the immediate handover of all relevant documents.
Hand-picked.
Hand-picked.
One of his hand-picked advisors. Handplant. Handplan.
Handrail.
Handrail.
Handsaw.
Handsaw.
Handset.
Handset.
Hands-free.
Hands-free.
A hands-free phone.
Handshake.
Handshake.
He greeted me with a handshake and a glass of wine.
Her handshake was warm and firm.
Hands off.
Hands off.
A hands-off style of management. The government has a hands-off approach to the industry. Handsome.
Handsome.
An extremely handsome young man.
Sam was tall, dark and handsome. His handsome face.
A row of handsome Georgian houses.
He managed to make a handsome profit out of the deal.
A handsome fee.
There are some handsome prizes to be won.
They won a handsome victory in the elections.
He was handsomely rewarded by the king.
Hands-on.
Hands-on.
A chance to get some hands-on experience of the job.
He has a very hands-on approach to management.
Handspring.
Handspring.
Handstand.
Handstand.
Hand-to-hand.
Hand-to-hand.
There was fierce hand-to-hand fighting in the streets of the city.
They were defeated in hand-to-hand combat.
Hand-to-mouth.
Hand-to-mouth.
Hand-tool.
Hand-tool.
Hand-towel.
Hand-towel.
Hand-wash.
Hand-wash.
Handwriting.
Handwriting.
I recognized her handwriting on the envelope.
My handwriting has never been very neat.
Handwritten.
Handwritten.
A handwritten letter.
Handy.
Handy.
It's quite a handy little tool. It's very handy having a light above your desk.
Take your swimming trunks with you. They might come in handy. I always keep my gun handy just in case. Do you have a piece of paper handy?
The house was in Drury Lane, very handy for the theatre.
He's very handy with a screwdriver.
Handyman.
Handyman.
Hang.
Hang.
Philip hung his coat on a hook behind the door.
She hung the sheets on the washing line.
An old-fashioned gas lamp hung from the ceiling.
Her long hair hung loose about her shoulders.
The shirt hung down almost to his ankles.
I wanted to hang the picture in the hall. There was a family photograph hanging on the wall.
The entrance hall was hung with rich tapestries.
He was hanged for murder.
Corey hanged himself in his prison cell.
If he is found guilty, he will almost certainly hang.
We spent the afternoon hanging wallpaper.
Hanging a door is quite a tricky job.
The smoke from the bonfires hung in the air.
A thick mist hung over the town. The future of the company hangs in the balance.
He is still in hospital, his life hanging by a thread.
Don't worry, just hang on in there.
She hung her head, not sure how to reply. Daphne had hung her head in shame.
I think we should hang fire for a week. I think we should hang fire for a week.
His resignation has left some important questions hanging in the air.
Go straight on for 2 blocks, then hang left.
We were just hanging with the dudes at Mike's house.
I'll be hanged if I'll give them any money. Oh, hang the report. Let's go for a drink.
Come on, we haven't got time to hang about.
There were always groups of boys hanging about in the square.
He normally hung about the house all day.
Hang about? That can't be right.
I hung around the station for an hour, but he never came.
The people I used to hang around with were much older than me.
Instinctively, he hung back in the shelter of a rock.
She hung on to the side of the cart.
Hang on tight.
Hang on, I'll be back in a minute.
Everything hangs on the outcome of this meeting.
She was watching his face, hanging on his every word.
I think I'll hang on to the documents for a bit longer.
I don't really know who she hangs out with.
Where do the youngsters hang out?
My job was to hang out the washing.
Hang the wet things out to dry.
The threat of redundancy was still hanging over us.
It's not very nice to have huge debts hanging over your head.
Her story just doesn't hang together.
I said goodbye and hung up.
Don't hang up on me.
She took her coat off and hung it up.
It seems difficult at first, but you'll soon get the hang of it. It seems difficult at first, but you'll soon get the hang of it.
Hanger.
Hanger.
Hangdog.
Hangdog.
I could tell from his hangdog look that things had gone badly.
Hanger.
Hanger.
She took off her jacket and hung it on a hanger.
Hanger on.
Hanger on.
He was surrounded by a crowd of friends and hangers-on.
Hang glider.
Hang glider.
Hang gliding.
Hang gliding.
Hanging.
Hanging.
Public hangings.
People who believe that bringing back hanging will reduce the amount of crime.
A colourful wall hanging.
Hanging basket.
Hanging basket.
Hangman.
Hangman.
Hangnail.
Hangnail.
Hangout.
Hangout.
The bar is a favourite hangout for students.
Hangover.
Hangover.
I had a terrible hangover the next day.
This feeling was a hangover from her school days.
An institution, which is a hangover from Victorian times.
Hang up.
Hang up.
She had cured him of all his hang-ups.
She's got a real hang-up about her body.
Hank.
Hank.
Hanker.
Hanker.
She hankered for a new life in a different country.
Holiday makers who hanker after the sun.
I've been hankering to visit my father's birthplace for many years.
Hankering.
Hankering.
He's hankering for adventure.
I've always had a hankering to be a doctor.
Hanky.
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 Hanky-panky.
Hanky-panky.
Handsome.
Handsome.
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
Halfpenny.
Halfpenny.
Haphazard.
Haphazard.
I continued my studies in a rather haphazard way.
Educational provision in the country is haphazard.
Bushes growing haphazardly here and there.
Hapless.
Hapless.
The hapless passengers were stranded at the airport for 3 days.
Happen.
Happen.
When did the accident happen?
Hapless.
Hapless.
Happen.
Happen.
When did the accident happen?
It's impossible to predict what will happen next.
Something terrible has happened. She carried on as if nothing had happened.
This was bound to happen sooner or later.
This kind of thing happens all the time.
We'll still be friends whatever happens.
He should be here by now. Something must have happened to him.
The same thing happened to me last year.
What's happened to your coat? It's all ripped.
I happened to see James in town.
This happens to be my house.
As it happens, I know someone who might be able to help.
It's not your fault. These things happen.
Whatever happened to Steve? I haven't seen him for years.
I happened on the restaurant by chance.
Happening. Happening.
There have been reports of strange happenings in the town. Brighton is definitely a happening place.
Happenstance.
Happenstance.
Happily.
Happily.
Michelle smiled happily.
I'm a happily married man.
So she married the prince, and they lived happily ever after.
Happily, his injuries were not serious.
I'd happily go for you.
Most restaurants will happily accept payment by credit card.
Happiness.
Happiness.
Juliet's eyes shone with happiness.
We want our children to have the best possible chance of happiness.
Happy. Happy.
It's a lovely house and we've been very happy here.
I've never felt happier in my life.
He was a happy child who rarely cried.
The happy faces of the children.
I loved her and thought I could make her happy.
She's very happy about the baby.
John will be so happy to see you.
I'm happy that everything worked out well in the end.
What a wonderful opportunity. I'm so happy for you.
We're very happy to be taking part.
This has been the happiest day of my life.
They had a very happy marriage.
I have lots of happy memories of the place.
The story has a happy ending, however.
When's the happy event?
On the whole, I'm happy with the way I look.
People living nearby are not happy with the decision.
Mum wasn't happy about Tess going off travelling on her own. Mum wasn't happy about Tess going off travelling on her own.
I pretended to agree with her just to keep her happy.
I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing.
Our team will be happy to help.
I'd be happy to take you in my car.
Happy birthday, Michael. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
By a happy coincidence, James was also in town that weekend.
I'm in the happy position of not having to work.
I always tried to strike a happy medium between having a home that looked like a bomb had hit it and becoming obsessively tidy. I always tried to strike a happy medium between having a home that looked like a bomb had hit it and becoming obsessively tidy.
His choice of words was not a very happy one.
Happy clappy.
Happy clappy.
Happy clappy Christians.
Happy-go-lucky.
Happy-go-lucky.
A happy-go-lucky person.
Happy hour.
Happy hour.
Happy slapping.
Happy slapping.
Haptic.
Haptic. Haptic technology can give someone an idea of the weight and texture of a virtual object. Haptic technology can give someone an idea of the weight and texture of a virtual object.
Harakiri.
Harikiri.
Harangue.
Harangue.
He stood on the street corner, haranguing passers-by about the stupidity of the forthcoming war. He stood on the street corner, haranguing passers-by about the stupidity of the forthcoming war.
Harass.
Harass.
A number of black youths have complained of being harassed by the police.
One woman claimed that she had been sexually harassed by a male manager.
Harass.
Harass.
One woman claimed that she had been sexually harassed by a male manager.
Harassed.
Harassed.
He looked pale and harassed.
Harassment.
Harassment.
African Americans have been complaining about police harassment for years.
Political parties are banned, and harassment of dissidents is commonplace. Political parties are banned, and harassment of dissidents is commonplace.
We need effective strategies to combat sexual harassment in the workplace.
Harbinger.
Harbinger.
These birds are considered to be harbingers of doom.
Harbour.
Harbour.
As they sailed into Portsmouth Harbour,
I think he's harbouring some sort of grudge against me.
she began to harbour doubts over the wisdom of their journey. She began to harbour doubts over the wisdom of their journey. Sinks and draining boards can harbour germs. Sinks and draining boards can harbour germs. Sinks and draining boards can harbour germs.
Hard.
Hard.
A hard wooden chair. The hardest substance known to man.
After months without rain, the ground was too hard to plough.
This year's exam was much harder than last year's.
You'll have to make some hard decisions.
They're a hard team to beat.
It was hard to see what else we could have done.
It's hard to believe that anyone would say something like that.
I was finding it hard to concentrate.
Permanent jobs are hard to come by.
It must be hard for her bringing up 3 kids on her own.
Telling my parents is going to be the hardest thing about it.
You'll have a hard time proving that.
I had a hard time persuading him to accept the offer.
Such criticism was hard to take.
To be successful in sport requires hard work and a great deal of determination.
After a hard day at work, I just want to come home and put my feet up.
There's a sauna where you can relax after a hard day's skiing.
Becoming a doctor never interested him. It was too much like hard work.
She's had a hard life.
Times were hard and they were forced to sell their house.
He had clearly fallen on hard times.
Perhaps I'm too hard on her. Divorce can be very hard on children.
Standing all day is very hard on the feet.
He learned the hard way about the harsh reality of the boxing world.
Make sure you put the baby's diaper on before you start feeding her. I learned this lesson the hard way.
He earned his promotion the hard way.
Jane gave the door a good hard push.
She gave him a hard slap.
There is no hard evidence to support this theory.
A hard face.
Her voice was hard and cold.
You're a hard man, John.
A strong wind made the race very hard going.
I find some of his friends pretty hard going.
Juventus were making hard work of what should have been an easy game.
Sarah was hard at it on her computer.
I failed my driving test. Oh, hard luck. You've had your share of hard luck. It was hard luck on you. If you don't like the idea, then hard luck.
Giving you a hard time, is she? They reached the border where officials gave them a hard time.
Hostile critics have given Hartman a hard time.
I'm glad she's happy at last. She's had such a hard time.
Vegetarians still often have a hard time of it when it comes to eating out.
The company is believed to have struck a hard bargain.
We've known each other too long for hard feelings.
I have no hard feelings towards Steve. I have no hard feelings towards Steve.
I'm sorry it didn't work out, but no hard feelings, eh?
You should take a long, hard look at the issues before committing yourself.
The president should abandon his hard line in the region.
The school takes a very hard line on drugs.
TV news programs seem to be more interested in gossip than in hard news. He thinks he's really hard.
Jones was known as soccer's hard man.
Concerns about the re-emergence of the hard right in some areas.
The hard brilliance of the moonlight.
Hard liquor.
I never touch the hard stuff.
A material that would combine the flexibility of rubber with the hardness of glass.
She has worked hard all her life.
He had thought long and hard before getting involved with the project. He had thought long and hard before getting involved with the project.
She tried her hardest to ignore what he'd said.
Ella was concentrating very hard.
I couldn't convince him no matter how hard I tried.
You need to hit the ball hard.
He slammed the door hard behind him.
It was raining very hard.
By now the cement had set hard.
Sales were hard hit by high interest rates.
You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone better for the job.
As a child, I felt hard done by living so far away from my friends.
Alan took his mother's death particularly hard. Alan took his mother's death particularly hard.
His second major contract followed hard upon the first.